All good things must come to an end. After a 6-game win streak, the longest of Gary Gates' tenure, it's over. The Orange fell to top-ranked Cornell 17-12. It was in with arm's reach plenty of times for SU, but the Big Red were just too much to handle. This one was a roller coaster at every twist and turn. The question, why couldn't Syracuse get it done? The answer, coming up. It's Orange Press Pass, and it starts right now. Hello and welcome inside the CitrusTV studio alongside Jish, Sokolsky, and Purvis. I'm Hudson, Ridley. This game today for Syracuse was a big letdown. 17-12 on Long Island. The Orange fell to the Big Red. Guys, I want to know, first of all, Jish, I'll start with you. What are you thinking after a game like this?
Well, what I'm thinking about is the college lacrosse landscape. Almost every team has some sort of weakness. And today, Cornell didn't seem to have a weakness, but Syracuse's weakness was just death by a million paper cuts. Bad shots, whether that was Joey Spallina's behind the back at the end of the first quarter. Bad passes on the extra man up opportunities where Sam English can't hold on to the ball. Bad slides. CJ Kirst, the towards on finalist, was wide open way too many times. And bad special teams. These are all little mistakes that Syracuse had control over and simply just couldn't execute. They died by a ton of little mistakes from beginning to end, Cole.
Well, I look at the fact that Syracuse is allergic to good starts. This is now 3 games in a row that SU has gone down at least 2-0 to start the game. Head coach Gary Gates has talked about on numerous occasions throughout the season, have to get off to better starts. They did not do that today, and it finally came back to bite them in a loss.
Based on what I'm hearing here, I don't think I want to see these highlights, but let's rip the Band-Aid off and let's do this thing. Syracuse and Cornell on Long Island, the first neutral site meeting between these two teams ever in a regular season game, and it happened to be where 21 players are from. CJ Kirst, though, not from that area. You know where he's from? Goal-scoring town. Gets the thing started. Cornell went up 1-0. That goal, though, midway through the first quarter, they just never really got things going on either side of the ball throughout the first quarter, but Owen Hiltz got things going for the Orange early on. Jish, he was a big factor in this one for Syracuse.
I love the way he shoots. It's almost like a golf swing. We're in master season right now, and he is a master at that lefty shot. He was a big reason Syracuse stayed in it today.
You know who else is? CJ Kirst. He scored right there yet again. Kirst would go on to have 5 goals in this game, but he was countered by 4 from Owen Hiltz. You see, that golf swing, I don't know, that drive wouldn't go very far. That was pretty solid, straightforward, but the Orange started to creep back into things. The door, though, continually shut by the Big Red. That goal right there put it up 9-3 going into the half by guess who? Of course, CJ Kirst, who's actually 9-5, the halftime score. The Orange rattled off 2 to kind of creep back into this one, but CJ Kirst, he was just a monster. Cole, they could not stop him.
It was the theme all day. Syracuse would garner some momentum and then just could not capitalize on it. Too many turnovers for Gary Gates' squad. And I think that Cornell is a lot more than just CJ Kirst. Ryan Goldstein recorded goal number 20 of his season, so they have a great supporting cast as well, and it really hurt SU today.
It showed up. Syracuse is a supporting cast with Tyler Cordes getting on the board there, and then right after that, Owen Hiltz made it a 2-score game. This is where Syracuse had their best bite at the apple, but then things started to fall apart. A team that is not known for turnovers, best in the country at not turning the ball over, well, they turned it over 13 times today. 7 of those were in a second half where you needed to come back and win, or else this team was going to get buried. Ryan Goldstein, one of those big reasons why. Goal number 20, as you said, for him on the season, and then the finishing touches put on by Walker Wallace, the captain long pole from halfway out. Cornell 17, the Orange 12. SU cannot take down the #1 in the country. And let's take a look at some of the stats here, guys. CJ Kirst, my goodness, 5 goals, 3 assists. Boy, he had a performance.
And this is just a typical day at the office for CJ Kirst. He started off the season with back-to-back 6-goal games. He's had multiple goals in every single game this season. 7 points a contest. Syracuse is no different than any other team. You can only slow them down, but the Orange just simply couldn't do it today.
The ball movement was incredible by Cornell today, and Syracuse just could not rotate fast enough to keep up with the ball movement by Cornell. And CJ Kirst really living up to the hype, a player that's closing in on the all-time NCAA goals record.
So this was a bit of a letdown, obviously on Long Island too. So Syracuse doesn't even get a home game. But this was a bit of a home game for John Boccio, our reporter who is right now at the stadium in Uniondale, New York. John, you are a Long Island guy, so I want to know, was the Long Island atmosphere at least there today?
Oh, I gotta say, for a Long Island representative, they were repping in the stands as well. There were a combined 22 players that are from Long Island on both Cornell and Syracuse. And well, let me tell you, every single one of their parents in the crowd, their parents' parents, their random other kids that they got walking around, the atmosphere was rocking here in Uniondale today. Cornell's section a little bit smaller than Syracuse's. Syracuse filled up about 3/4 of Mitchell Field's sections of bleachers that they had, but ultimately Syracuse did a very good job of packing out the stands, and Cornell did their job as well. There was very good Long Island representation in this one today, and well, you could see in the game that players were really fired up as they were moving along with all of their family in the stands.
John, you look great right now, and that's how I know you weren't playing in the game, because if you did, you'd probably be a little black and blue. These players were going at each other almost like they were division rivals. It was a very scrappy game once again. John, what were the temperature of the tempers of today's game?
The temperatures were as hot as they could get, right? They were at 99, 100, 110 degrees. That was how high the temperatures were in this game, Jish. And obviously that's not the actual temperatures. It's about 25 here right now and windy, but that's besides the point. The tempers were at an all-time high in this game, and you could tell that these teams just simply don't like each other. There was the scrap at the end of the game when Syracuse is leaving its empty net with Michael Ippoliti picking up an extra defender, and, well, what did a Cornell long pole do? They knocked the ball in for the 17th goal of the game, and, well, Syracuse's reaction wasn't too pleasant to that. They immediately sprinted over to him. Players started all going around, and, well, ultimately it just resulted in a little bit of a scrum that didn't take too long. But even in the early goings, these teams were getting at each other a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. You guys talked about the turnovers earlier on. Well, that was the biggest cause of it. Players were getting at each other constantly, forcing turnovers. Every second they got, they were on the ball. And it showed a lot, especially on a play down in the second half when game was winding down. Owen Hiltz comes up behind a Cornell attackman who's trying to get the ball in transition. Cornell attackman's kind of lost in space because a whistle was just blown and he can't move yet. Hiltz just pokes it out of his stick and boom, ball goes flying. Everyone is on the deck. It was a wild sequence from Syracuse, and they did a great job tonight of keeping up the tempers, and, well, so did Cornell. So ultimately, everybody was at each other's throats in this game.
What's up, John? Let's talk about Mr. Unstoppable CJ Kirst. You're obviously at the game, so from your perspective, why did Syracuse struggle to contain him so much today?
So, Cole, here's the thing. It's not a question of why did Syracuse struggle to contain him. It's more a question of there's just no slowing him down. So how do you make him not score 5 goals, right? But we'll get back to the actual question here. Cole, the biggest reason that CJ Kirst was so dominant in today's game is because if you leave him with his hands free for more than a second, he's firing off a shot, and he is just so accurate when he shoots the ball. The amount of precision that he has on his shots constantly is so pristine, and you see it from CJ Kirst time and time again. A play that really stuck out to me was when he was just driving straight down Broadway. Jimmy McCool has a direct angle at him. It's a point-blank shot from about 5 to 10 yards out, and CJ Kirst, rather than doing his long wind-up and really getting into the velocity of the shot, just pops it over the head of Jimmy McCool. It's plays like that, not only his IQ for the game, but also just how he can switch up the angles so well, changing planes. It really helps CJ Kirst be CJ Kirst today.
Well, John, thank you for that. I can see a little bit of red in your nose. I think you're getting a little bit cold. So before we keep you outside for a little bit longer, we'll send you back inside. You won't have to worry about that anymore. But please, when you go inside, keep watching OPP because we have plenty more coming up after this break. Find out how CJ Kirst and Joey Spallina matched up in this big-time game. You won't want to miss it. Welcome into our CitrusTV studios. Hudson, Ridley with you alongside Jish, Sokolsky and Cole Purvis. Syracuse falling to Cornell on Long Island, 17-12, your final score. Guys, there wasn't a whole lot to be happy about if you're Syracuse, especially with a margin like that. But Michael Leo and Owen Hiltz, big days from them. Jish, this was a pretty good showing from both of them.
You know, the final score suggests that this was some sort of blowout, but because of Owen Hiltz and Michael Leo, it was a lot closer than it was. I look at Owen Hiltz dancing, tap dancing, pirouetting on the goal line, almost like he was in a production of Pippin, but he was more of the Jordan today with 4 goals. He was working really well in tight angles. That's where they utilize him best. Meanwhile, Michael Leo was the aerial threat from way out in cage, from straightaway, the downhill dodges, the strikes from far away. Those two really put the offense on their back today, Cole.
Hiltz has shown the ability to be the 1B alongside Spalina's 1A all season long. But specifically the duo of Leo and Hiltz complement each other so well because Leo has so much agility. He's great at dodging downhill. And then a player like Hiltz can really make something out of nothing where he can just be standing stationary, dodge a defender, and create enough space for a goal. So when Spalina has an off day like he did today, those two can pick it up, and that's the impressive thing about this Syracuse team.
Well, you really just mentioned that there, a bit of an off day for Spalina. This was what we expected coming into the game, was a battle between CJ Kirst and Joey Spalina. These are two Tewaaraton finalists. Both are top 5 in the country in points, so you expected this to shake out in a much closer fashion. Guys, it really didn't happen that way, though.
Yeah, CJ Kirst today was an absolute man amongst boys. And then you talk about how Cornell was able to limit Joey Spalina in this game and have Cornell win that battle of stars. I look at this one statistic, Jish. Luke Roa, 13 shots on goal today for Syracuse. Joey Spalina, just 3. That shows that Cornell was limiting Syracuse's best player, taking him away, making the role players try and hurt them. And CJ Kirst, unstoppable as always this season. You cannot contain him. He's in on every play, making an impact 24/7 for this Big Red squad.
Cole, by just the eye test, it seems like CJ Kirst is a faster, more agile version of Joey Spalina, and a smarter version too. I felt like there was nothing Cole Kirst couldn't do today. Get his hands free, step down shots, downhill dodging, wrapping around cage, finishing from point blank range. Meanwhile, Joey Spalina, he barely got the ball today. CJ Kirst is the focal point of that offense. You always knew where he was. Meanwhile, Joey Spalina, I mean, he really wasn't visible today.
Yeah, really not the homecoming that Joey Spalina would have wanted on Long Island from Mount Sinai, and it just, did not come together for him. The pieces weren't put together on the offensive end, but the defensive end, it really was no different. Syracuse last week against Notre Dame had maybe their best defensive showing of the year, and now all of a sudden, Jish, that was gone today.
I came into this game, Hudson, really thinking that it was going to be a Riley Figueres masterclass. I thought what they did with Chris Kavanaugh last week, rinse and repeat, give it to CJ Kirst as well, but that simply wasn't the case, especially on the man down. I saw guys like Caden Cole with his back to the play, bad communication, bad slides. They were not reaching over, and because of that, some of the stars of this Cornell team, Michael Long, Goldstein, CJ Kirst, were wide open. That's the reason why Cornell put up a season high in goals allowed against Syracuse. It really came down to a breakdown in communication on the back line.
You talk about the Junkyard Dogs, that man down unit for Syracuse. Well, the Junkyard Dogs were really put in the doghouse today. Cornell's ball movement was absolutely incredible, like I mentioned earlier, freeing up CJ Kirst, freeing up the other players on this team, really having their way with this SU defense and route to an ugly loss for Syracuse.
Well, there was really no question about it. CJ Kirst, Cornell's player of the game today, and your Orange Press Pass player of the game with 5 goals. That brings his season average now up to just short of 5. He now needs just 6 more to break the all-time scoring record in NCAA Division I men's lacrosse. Everybody knew Kirst would be a problem. Gary Gate actually laughed in his presser this week and said, we just have to stop him. Well, the Orange did not do that. 8 points today. CJ Kirst is not only your Tewaaraton winner, but he's also the winner of your Orange Press Pass player of the game. Still to come on OPP, we take a look around the Hill and the nation, plus our analysts sound off after this.
Welcome to my house. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. yourlifeyourvoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It could help you find a little more breathing room.
Baby, you see, I cannot set you free. My lonely days are gone. That's why I'm never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go. Babe, I'm never gonna let you go. No, never gonna let you go.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you
Welcome back into Orange Press Pass alongside Jish, Sokolsky, and Purvis. I'm Hudson Ridley. Syracuse losing to Cornell today 17-12. And guys, that wasn't the only thing that happened around the Hill today. Let's take a quick look, though, first at some stuff that happened around in other sports. Of course, you see in that top left, Syracuse softball, Cole. You know a little bit about that game.
Absolutely. They've had a rough go of it as of late. Took just 1 of 3 against Georgia Tech on the road last week, and now on the verge of being swept against Virginia. A 5-0 loss today, as well as a 10-0 mercy rule defeat. It's been brutal. Besides Madison Knight, the pitching staff for this team has not been good at all. A team that's looking at likely missing the ACC tournament, the second to last team in the ACC as of this point in the season.
I'm looking at this women's lacrosse score. The number 11 team in the country lost to unranked Virginia Tech in the road on Blacksburg. Listen, this Syracuse team has been maybe more disappointing than years past, but I don't think anyone saw this coming. Virginia Tech's Lord Render, 7 goals on the day.
That was one of the biggest scores from around the nation in general. We take a look at some other scores from around the nation that happened today. And top left corner, a big upset. Lafayette over BU. Jish, that was big.
That was huge because Boston was seen as one of these mid-major teams that's going to make some noise in March Madness. At this point, all bets are off. This has been such a crazy lacrosse season. It seems like if you're ranked, the target on your back is bigger, and that's what happened with BU today.
I'm looking at Maryland beating Ohio State 13-8. Maryland goalie Logan McNaney breaking the all-time program saved record with his 706th career save. Bryce Ford with a hat trick. And then 2 other teams that Syracuse is about to play, Duke and North Carolina, the next 2 teams on SU's schedule. UNC getting a 1-goal victory over the Blue Devils today. That's big for them.
It kind of feels like this year the only thing that we really know is that everything is inconsistent.
Yeah.
I really haven't seen a single thing this year that I can hang my hat on. And coming into today, it almost seemed like that was Joey Spallina, right? You can hang your hat on the fact that Joey Spallina is going to show up in this game. But guys, that's really not the case right now.
A wise man once said, freshman year Joey Spallina might take a bad shot. Sophomore year Joey Spallina might pass out of a goal. Today, he just didn't show up. We thought Joey Spallina arrived after last week against Notre Dame. Finally got the monkey off their back when they beat Notre Dame. But Joey Spallina, after a 4-goal performance in that one, could only muster 1 goal today. I mean, listen, this team runs through Joey Spallina in big games. And because Joey Spallina is inconsistent in big games, Syracuse is always going to be inconsistent in big games because, like it or not, they are reliant on number 22.
Look, college lacrosse is a matchup league, and you look at a game like Syracuse-Colgate a couple of weeks ago where Joey Spallina notched his career-high 11 points. Then the very next game, a Virginia team plays a lot more physical on him and only allows Spallina to score 1 point. It was the same thing today with just that 1 goal for Spallina. It's all about how the other team defends him, and if Syracuse gets a tough draw early in the playoffs, a team that plays a lot more physical on Joey Spallina, they could be an early exit.
So now Syracuse kind of gets in an uncomfortable position as well. Obviously, too, Spallina, it almost raises the question, what do you do if you kind of can't rely on him in any game at this point? Because, I have no answer. I don't think anybody does have an answer. I think part of the problem is, too, right now that he's not getting a whole lot of help game in and game out. We thought the defense was even more consistent than Spallina, and then all of a sudden they have their biggest stinker of the season goals-wise, and the sky is falling.
To me, it all falls on the man in net, Hudson, because Jimmy McCool might have had his worst game in a Syracuse uniform so far. Jimmy McCool could only muster 3 saves today, and that's because Cornell knew exactly how to beat him. Jimmy McCool had a hole right through his legs in the 5 spot, and that's where Cornell shot all game long. Jimmy McCool in the Notre Dame game had some great kick saves, some great snagging it at the corner, but underneath his armpits on either side and in between his legs, that was the sweet spot. CJ Kirst watched film, exploited that weakness, and McCool looked pretty sweaty in net, we'll say it.
What I look at is the lack of communication from John O'Derna's group. When you have a first-year starter in goal, somebody like Jimmy McCool, the communication from that back line needs to be at an all-time high. It hasn't for Syracuse, and that's why you're seeing some large scoring outputs from some of their opponents, just like you saw from the Cornell Big Red today.
Man, it almost leaves you thinking, obviously, Syracuse almost felt like a shoo-in coming into today to be in Memorial Day weekend. But now all of a sudden, the Orange don't look like they're in a really great spot going down the line. Do you have any suggestions on what they should do instead for Memorial Day weekend if it really does come to that?
I really don't think that you can panic if you're Syracuse, right? This is the #1 team in the country after all. Sure, there were some bad mistakes, but there was a lot of things you couldn't control too. The temperature wasn't the ideal. I heard there was rumors of perhaps illness going around, especially with the compounded temperatures. Not necessarily ideal, right? I don't want to say that there's nothing to learn from this game, but I think you can say, yep, we played the #1 team in the country, and as a wise Arizona Cardinals coach once said, they are who we thought they were.
Well, the college lacrosse landscape is absolute madness. We've talked about it. Nobody knows who's good. Nobody knows who's bad. A team that's unranked could go out and upset the #1 team in the country, and we've seen that at times this season, and Syracuse just fell to a really good Cornell team today, but who knows? If they have a good day in the postseason, maybe facing a Big Red team once again, Spallina shows up, it could be a different result next time around.
I asked you guys, what are they going to do Memorial Day weekend? I didn't figure it'd be on there. I thought, maybe go fishing, hang out by the lake, grill some hot dogs. Maybe have a cookout.
They can party with me, right? I'm available on Memorial Day weekend.
Hey,
too,
look,
right?
Those lax guys are fun. I'd love to have a pool party
I wouldn't
with them.
mind that one bit. That sounds like a good bit of fun. Guys, we still have more fun to have on this show coming up after this, because when we come back, our analysts sound off on some major points. You're not going to want to miss it. Back after this.
Jason, let's go see your room.
How is it? Is it good?
One final time here on Orange Press Pass. Hudson, Ridley with you. That's Jish Sokolsky. That's Purvis. We had #1 and #4 today. Cornell taking down Syracuse. And in a year where there's been a lot of changes happening in those national rankings, guys, there could be a lot of changes upcoming even after this.
I think there's a lot of pieces that can be moved around. With the Ohio State loss today, with the Syracuse loss today, I see Maryland jumping really high up back into the top 5 after beating Ohio State today. And after North Carolina beat Duke, they might create a really, really interesting matchup between the Orange and the Tar Heels in the final week of the season.
I agree with that take about the Terps. I think they have one of the best goaltenders in the country in Logan McNaney, and just an average Saturday in college lacrosse. 2 of the top 5 teams go down. It's going to be chaos come the tournament, and I can't wait to see who gets to Gillette Stadium for championship weekend.
Should certainly be interesting. I know you guys have more opinions as well, so I'm going to roll out the red carpet, stand out of your way, and time for you guys to sound off.
Now, today was a bad loss. We cannot sugarcoat that. We cannot spoonful that down with a spoonful of sugar. But good thing for SU fans, this was probably the last game SU could afford to lose. Coming up next is number 12 Duke, and this is a hungry team, but a team that Syracuse is much better than. If they lose to this Duke team without Brennan O'Neill, without Josh Zawada, without Dyson Williams, that would be pathetic and a sign of horrible things to come. If they lose to North Carolina, who kind of seem like they're a year behind Syracuse in their retooling process, a very young team, that would be a travesty. Of course, Syracuse has to do some damage in the ACC tournament. I think that if they go one and done in that tournament again, they could be looking at a road game in the NCAA tournament, and from there, God only knows how bad it could get for the Orange. First, they gotta make it to May, and they're so close to getting there, but from here on in, it's win out or bust.
Well, Jish, you mentioned it earlier. This team lost to the number 1 team in the country today. So I say the streak had to end at some point. It was a 6-game win streak, the longest in the career of head coach Gary Gait since he's been with this men's lacrosse program. You're playing an absolute wagon of a Cornell team led by the best player in the nation in CJ Kurse. This does not take away from what this team has done over the past month or so with wins over teams like Notre Dame, Johns Hopkins, Virginia, who's won 2 of the last 5 national championships. It's been a strong month or so. And when you look at where this team was in mid-February, having lost back-to-back games to Maryland and Harvard, you would take this result. A great last month or so. And just because they lost to the number 1 team in the country isn't the end of the world for me.
Right now, we're talking national championships. We're talking end of the season way down the line. Guys, right now, though, it's a little bit different for Syracuse football. Over in the Dome today, instead of the men's lacrosse game, it was Syracuse football spring game. Our reporter AJ Myers has more.
Thanks, Hudson. Well, the big headlines today were made before the game even started, when it was announced that newly starting quarterback Ricky Collins would not participate today because of a right hand injury. Now, Fran Brown did reassure everyone that this is nothing serious and he'll be ready to go for summer camp and everything after that. As for the game, I was most impressed with backup quarterback Jakari Williams. I thought he had a really good game. He could really move the ball down the field well. He's got a great arm. He also had a nice connection with Justice Ross Simmons, who looked really good today as well. Remember, he missed much of last year with an injury. So really good signs from what we think is the number 2 quarterback for Syracuse. And outside of that, I thought it was really neat seeing Demetrius Samuel Jr., the 17-year-old. He played both sides of the ball. He almost had a touchdown catch, but he stepped out of bounds, so that was really neat. But overall, there's a lot of positive signs from this roster, and next up for Fran Brown's group is a very daunting 2025 fall schedule that gets going on August 30th in Atlanta, Georgia against Tennessee.
Guys, it's got me worried. I heard Syracuse lost to Syracuse in that game, and I don't know how to feel about it. It's very, very worrying. You look at our next OPP coming up, Boston College and Syracuse, a big, big matchup on Thursday, the last regular season game of the year. You're not going to want to miss that, guys.
Absolutely not. And this Syracuse team, they just lost to Virginia Tech. If they couldn't do it in years where they were undefeated for the regular season, they're not going to do it this time, Hudson.
That's a wake-up call for the Syracuse women's lacrosse team. They'll have to regroup to face an absolute powerhouse in BC.
No, it's going to be very tough. Always the kryptonite, BC and Syracuse, and always the kryptonite now, Cornell for Syracuse. The Big Red take down the Orange 17-12. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Orange Press Pass. For our producers, Purvis and Jish Sokolsky, I'm Hudson Ridley saying so long, and we hope you enjoyed the show.